Hello, and welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bolland, and I'm a congenital amputee of the right hand. In this show, I will interview other amputees and allow them to tell you their incredible life stories. I'll also feature family members of amputees and others who support the amputee community, all in an effort to discuss the challenges and triumphs of those living with limb loss. So stick around and listen to inspirational stories and find out why we say, We're Not Stumped. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bolland, and today I got a familiar face. Season 5, Episode 1, Rachel Simukonda was on that one, and she's the one that I talked about the other day on Thursday, October 3rd, who told me about an event that I'm at today in Northern Arizona, Flagstaff, NAU, and it's been fantastic. So we're going to catch up today and talk about what she's been up to. Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the We're Not Stumped podcast.
Absolutely. I love being here.
Thank you for the invite. What did it mean to you to be involved in that fair downstairs? Because it was fantastic.
So, at first I was a little apprehensive about it. I just took over as chairperson for the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living. And so I was a little nervous about it because it's a big job. And I just stepped into it 2 weeks ago. So I met way more people than I thought I was going to. But every meeting I had gave me more acceleration and more power. So this was amazing to me.
This event was incredible. It was one of the best organized events I've been to, and I've been to a lot of events, even professionally when I was working back in the corporate America days. This was something that I learned something from everyone who was here, and there was so many different people with so many different abilities represented. What was that like for you?
One of the reasons I got on this commission is because, as you can see, I'm stumpy and I'm also in a wheelchair, but I've got a son with a traumatic brain injury. I've got a child that I know that is deaf in one ear. So this fair really kind of especially touched my heart because I'm finding people in my life and every single thing was represented here today. And so I found out information that I can take back from my family and friends, and I can take back to the commission and say, when the citizen reaches out to me, I can say, hey, I have that hookup for you. So for me, it is both personally and professionally, it meant a whole lot. And it was so well put on.
It really was. But when you said, get the hook up for me, I was like, get a hook for me. It's like, hey, I can use the hook. And I'm stumpy too, but that's all good. So what is going on with the City of Flagstaff, which you represent and work very closely with to try to improve things for people with different abilities?
So I've got a few pet projects. One of my newest ones is working with the mayor, and we are going to start working on diversity in hiring, diversity in employment. We saw, they put out a survey every year for their employees, and you have to self-identify. And a lot of them don't self-identify. We also recognize that there are no people with visual physical disabilities. So we want to make sure that we've got people that from every walk of differently abled society working at the city and representing. So that was my passion project. My new pet project is working with sled hockey and trying to get them up here. That's a big thing for me.
Yeah, the sled hockey. I know that Dan Moses, who was also on Season 5, Episode 1 with you, he's big with coyote hockey. We're going to have them on the podcast, a little teaser. They've agreed to be on the podcast. Can't wait to do that. But how cool would that be to have sled hockey in Flagstaff and then Phoenix and possibly even Tucson.
And Vegas, I heard.
Oh, that would be so neat.
I think that for this community especially, there's been such a lack of representation for our culture that would just be an amazing thing. And we've got NAU students that they're here for 4 years and then they leave. But if they come up here and they feel welcome because they are differently abled and they can see that there are things that they can do up here, number one, either we will keep them or they will take the passion that we hopefully can give them and take it on to another walk in life and potentially start their own whatever they want, sled hockey or hiking or whatever. So I'm hoping, really hoping that through the connections that we made today, that we're just going to make it soar. And before you know it, you're going to be coming up for the scrimmages between our team and their team.
I can't wait. You know, you said something too about the networking, and that was something that was on the webpage that I read about this event. And I could say that was a huge success. I met so many people up here. Everyone was great. How just getting all the people up here, what were some of the logistics? Was there any, what is that like to put an event on like this?
You know, I put on events for the military before, and there were people here from Prescott Valley. There were, of course, the sled hockey team from Phoenix. And so I think sending out the emails is really easy, but it's actually putting the action into the words into action. And that happened. With this event, that happened. Every single thing that Sarah Dorman wanted, she had.
She did a great job.
And more. Sarah's fabulous.
Oh, she absolutely is. She's also with Care for Caregivers,
yes.
if I'm not mistaken. That's a great organization.
Yes.
That's another one of those organizations. Like, that's near to my heart because I've had caregivers on my podcast, and it's like the unsung heroes of what's going on in any of these different communities. Another thing you said, though, that I don't want to let go by, because it's another passion for me, is the employment. I think that's fantastic that you're putting on a spotlight on that, because that's always, with me, and I know in different communities, it's always was the hardest thing in my life. Mm-hmm. But now there's people that are actually trying to make it work. And I think it's a great thing. What are some of the challenges and opportunities, I guess, when you're trying to put that into place? You said self-identifying is one.
Yes.
There are other things.
The self-identification is just, I think, a start point into jumping in. I think the other thing is that we have to have people that are willing to speak up in employment and say, hey, I work in the police department in records, but I'm finding it a little hard to get into the records files. So it's going to be a matter of making, again, that good connection with people. And I'm hoping that by doing this with the mayor, that as part of that process, we will make it known that our commission is willing to step up and stand beside them. And that if there's any concerns, they can come to us. If they don't want to identify to the city itself, they can identify to us, and then we can handle it for them. So I think that that's a big thing, is just making sure that they know they're safe where they're at, and that they can talk to somebody that is not going to say you're fired because we can't accommodate you.
It was great meeting the mayor. Thank you for introducing me.
Yeah,
it seemed like,
I love her to death.
Go ahead. And what's the mayor's name again?
Becky Daggett.
Great meeting the mayor. She is so in tune to what you're trying to do, and so behind what you're trying to do. Just like anything in life, if you don't have that support from above, it's not going to work. It must be great having that support from all levels.
Absolutely. Her and Councilwoman Miranda Sweet have been absolutely behind the disabled community, and they are actually one of the reasons that I feel as emboldened as I do to push forward with all of this. Because I was just talking to Mayor Daggett one day, and she goes, Rachel, I think you and I need to talk about this whole diversity in employment. And I'm like, I'm so there. Let's do this. And we are doing it. So,
but without the two of you, it wouldn't be happening. And I think you can be the role model for so many different other cities across the country with what you're doing.
I hope so.
Yeah. Is that part of what you're trying to, as you look to the future, and this might be 5 years out, who knows? But if you're able to create something like that here, this could be the model city. What does that mean?
I would love to do things like that, because while I love this little mountain town, I was born and raised here, and I love my mountain town. I think it would just be absolutely amazing for at least one city in every metropolitan area to have something like what we're building here. And if that means that I go down there and I spend a week training them and stepping in and alongside of them and whatever I have to do, I am so there for that. Because by the end of my life, I want to make sure that there is diversity in all 50 states.
Well, so I'm glad we got 80 more years of your life, because that's so we get a lot of opportunity to take advantage of it. There was a story, though, you told me as you were explaining some of the opportunities you have within the city. You told a story in the first podcast we did together about, I think it was the police department getting into the wheelchairs.
Yes.
Can you explain that again?
So we are going to be doing other commissioners and I are doing some ADA training. Police departments, I think nationwide, only get about an hour a year. And as we know, ADA is becoming a really big issue. So right now, the commission and I are working on a project that we will be going into the police department for each squad, taking wheelchairs, taking walkers, taking mobility devices, and having them actually experience this community where they work to see the things that are challenging for us. So, and that's what part of the audit walk was today, is auditing downtown so that we can identify those areas and make those areas more accessible. But I think it's so important to have law enforcement officers know what their community needs and what their community wants. But the reason I took a passion for this is because I had an unfortunate incident 2 years ago with the police officer in this town. And it took the wind out of me. And I think I laid in bed and cried for 3 days. And then when I talked to the chief that is now retired, and he said, Rachel, come in here and talk to my guys. And I thought, let's take it a step further and not just talk. Let's actually show them. Let's have them experience it. And so that's what my goal is. And that is another passion project of mine, to make sure that the police officers in this town already struggle with, bad images just because they're police. And a lot of the people in our community are afraid of them. And so I would like to hopefully teach them how to help all 5 different types of disabilities, so that when they encounter a specific person, they know how to deal with it. With an intellectually disabled person, you may need to get down at their level. You may need to offer some sort of adaptive device. But the police officers don't necessarily know. You don't touch an adaptive device until you have permission. So those are the goals that we're working on, but most especially getting them aware that this is what we experience sitting in this right here. And especially for someone like me, because I can't just get out of my chair and push my chair over something. And I've been told by a police officer, why don't you just get up and push your chair out of the way? So,
wow.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this will make a better relationship with the police department and with my culture. And we have a new police chief, Sean Connolly, and he is going to be, we stole him from Phoenix, by the way. And I am hoping that he is going to be exceptional. He has talked about community policing, and he shows so much enthusiasm when I talk to him that I'm hoping that this just goes a really long way and we get invited back once a month if we need to.
That's great.
Just to answer questions.
I think that's so important because, and I'll even say this about me, I can't see the forest through the trees on some things myself. And I'll give 2 examples. You were talking about the wheelchair. And I think I said this on our last podcast where I was on the Pro Bowlers tour, but when I'm helping out with Arizona Adaptive Sports, if I sit in a chair, I'll throw a gutter ball. Mm-hmm. It's just a different world that I don't know it until I try it. And on the flip side of that, I was volunteering at Camp No Limits a couple of weeks ago at Ability 360. And Hanger was kind enough to bring some hooks, prosthetics for family members in general to try, so they could see what it was like to wear a hook. And I'm watching, and I'm like, I don't see, from my perspective, I can't understand why they're struggling.
Yeah.
So I was able to put it on and show some children the way I did it.
Yeah.
And it was just like riding a bike. But I can't see the forest through the trees sometimes, even myself. So I think it's great that you're fostering that communication so people get to see a different side even of themselves and a different side of being human.
Yeah.
And you're going to continue to do that, I would take it.
Oh, for absolutely sure.
The next 80 years.
Probably the next 80 years.
80
absolutely.
Years.
I'll be 81 when
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, that's probably right now the biggest passion project I have. But I get a passion for every single thing that I do.
Yeah.
And every single person I meet.
Yeah.
And the surprising thing is, I'm ready for more.
And you make it work too.
Yes.
That's where I thought you were going to go, because everything you've done so far that I've known you, it's like you might have 10 different passion projects, but you get everything done. That's so important. That's because it's coming from your heart.
That's exactly
and you
it.
can see that.
If you do it with heart, it's not a job. And for me, I don't get paid for what I do. But guess what? I do get paid for what I do. The way that I get that is the smiles I see, the connections I make. I'm out in public and somebody's like, "Hey, Rachel."
Wow.
So for me, that's bigger payment than getting a paycheck.
Can people find your Flagstaff contact information, your City of Flagstaff,
yes,
on the City of Flagstaff website?
correct.
So if there's a city out there that may have some questions, I'm sure would you mind?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You'll find us under we were called the Commission on Disability Awareness. So that is still the website, and I'm working to try and change that. But for now, diversity awareness, or you can go to agendas and you can click on the new email through the agenda and you can contact us that way as well.
So you know what I wanted to ask you about is the WAVE, the wheelchair accessible vehicle. I know that's something you're working on. Can you explain that?
It is a committee that we're working on, and we're looking for a partner that if we can provide the vehicle, if there would be a company that would be willing to take on the responsibility for it, the maintenance would all be taken care of by our committee. We would just need drivers that were certified through ADOT, through whatever the Department of Transportation is, and they have to have some sort of specialized ADA training. So, right now we have 7.3% of our population needs a WAVE vehicle, and they're just not accessible.
And what does the WAVE vehicle do? It'll take them to wherever important things they need to go
Last minute, if I needed to go to the hospital and I didn't have my caregiver with me, I could call and it would be a taxi service that would get me there and get me back. We don't know if there's going to be fees involved or if we're going to find somebody that will help us with the payment. But even just having even a pay service, I think would be a really big thing here, because Flagstaff is now 55% either elderly or disabled. So 7.3% of our population in Flagstaff, they live life in a wheelchair. And we need access to be able to get where we need to go. With paratransit right now, we have to give a 2-day notice. Even medical transport is a 3-day notice. So we don't have options if things come up immediately. And so, for me to go to city council next week, I had to have a week notice so that I could get there. And it's one of the most important things I think I do in my life is going and showing the council, look, this is our needs and how can you help?
Wow.
And I'm the person to say, how can you help?
And that's something that you're just starting to put together? Is that?
I think I've been on the WAVE committee maybe 6 months.
Okay.
So it's fairly new. The problem is we thought that Uber was going to come alongside as a merchant, and they bowed out.
Oh.
And we've now only got one taxi company in town, and we've reached out to them several times and not hearing anything.
What's interesting about that too is, I said it on an earlier podcast, my $2 went to NAU, and I came up to Flagstaff back in the day when I was younger. How much this town has been built up in the last 10 years that I've been coming up here is crazy. Yeah. So I can just imagine that's creating even more challenges for people that need WAVE vehicles.
For sure. And a lot of our aged population are people that have been here forever. And so I feel like it's not giving them respect for taking care of our city. And so that's one of the reasons that I decided to do it, is I think that we need to honor our elders and take care of them. And that is one way we can do it.
That is definitely one way we can do it. And you've lived here your whole life too.
Yes, born and raised.
I love this place.
Yeah.
And you do too. That's why you're helping the community the way you help it.
Yeah. I want to leave one small toe print, just one toe, not 5 of them, just one single toe print somewhere in this city.
That's great, because there's so many great things happening in Flagstaff within all abilities community. And I know that you're spearheading most of it, if not all of it, certainly a lot of it. You seem to be the person, the go-to person for everything that I know about going on in Northern Arizona. So Thank you for everything you're doing.
I may not spearhead it, but I've got my finger in every piece of every pie I can get in.
That's what I mean.
So.
You know what's going on, and if you're not maybe part of it, you know who to get a hold of. And that's huge. And I think sometimes that's all what it's all about. It's the networking, like I talked about earlier, which I thought this event was so fantastic with. I met so many different people from the Valley that I didn't even know. And when we say the Valley, we're in Arizona. We're in northern Arizona. I happen to live in the Phoenix area. I met people from the Phoenix area today that I didn't even know.
Yeah.
So what a powerful, and I guess there's going to be another one possibly in June.
Right.
That's usually when they are.
Right.
In the Phoenix area. And I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And this one was billed as a northern Arizona, but we did get people from Phoenix. We got people from Prescott Valley. And like I told Sarah, I said, Sarah, it's not just northern Arizona that we need to touch. We need to touch everybody. And if there's people willing to come from Tucson, let's invite them.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion, we will make the connection with them and they will make it with us. And that's where we start. Yeah. We can make Arizona number one in ADA friendly, being ADA friendly.
Well, with people like you, I think it's going to happen.
Thank you. I hope so.
Thank you for being a guest again on the We're Not Stumped podcast. I know this isn't going to be the last time because there's so many different things to talk about. But after a long day of what you had to do, you had to represent your organization today downstairs, and you've been putting it together for the last few weeks. I think it's rest time for you. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to another event as soon as I leave here, but I got a pile of cookies from downstairs. So when I get home tonight, I'm done.
I don't blame you. Thank you so much for being
sure.
on.
Thanks, Mike.
Let's do it again.
I appreciate you. For sure. Absolutely.
That was the We're Not Stumped podcast, hosted by Mike Bolland. If you want to be a guest on the program, reach out to Mike at his email address, mike@mikeboland.com. This podcast is produced by One Hand Man Productions. If you are looking to start your podcast, go to onehandmanproductions.com.